Andy referred to several of the actions that the regulators have taken. At your places, you'll find this grid. I think you'll find this to be very helpful. And is Barry Maddox from the Fed here? Right. Yeah, Barry. What we attempted to do in this grid is to collect all of the financing facilities that have been created over the last 9 months. Andy alluded to some of them. These are credit facilities or guarantee facilities or trading facilities, most of them by the Fed, some of them by the Treasury, but in the case of the FDIC, there are a couple of them there too. And to chronicle when they started, who the users are, what kind of facility they are, what their legal authority is, and just as importantly, when they expire, because many of these have limited life, and how they are unwound is oftentimes just as important as how they were created in the first place. So we're going to have this on the website also, but supplementing it with links so that you can go and see the summary of the facility, what it's for, who uses it, but also if you want more punishment or more information, you can link to the actual documents at the agency. So we think you'll find this to be a very helpful tool. The group of 30 put out a report less than 2 weeks ago, and they talked about the too big to fail issue that Andy was alluding to. And they divided the world of too big to fail institutions into what they called software companies and hardware companies. And by hardware, they referred to custodians, exchanges, payment system folks, and transfer agents. Really the plumbing that makes our financial system what it is. It makes it click on a day-to-day basis, whether you like it or not. And as I mentioned earlier, Jay McHale is about to join us to talk to us about a company that you may never have heard about in an industry that you may not pay much attention to, but is vital in terms of too big and too important to fail. Jay?
Thank you, Con. My name is Jay McHale. I'm President of Equity Services with Computershare. I just wanted to thank Con for the opportunity to speak today, Boston Bar Association, as well as Morin Center. I think there was a contest about obscure things. We talked about credit default swaps, and I think there was a bet somewhere to say how much more obscure can we get. So let's talk about transfer agency. And before we talk about transfer agency, do I do this?
Yes.
Oh, there it is. All set. Before I talk about this, before I get into current events as well as how we're coping with them, for benefit of some of the younger students in the room, I would bet you during your career day in high school that you had a better shot of being a park ranger than you did of getting into the stock transfer business. I know of no one, when I explain what I do for a living, that's ever understood this before. So to talk about Computershare as a company, I'd like to talk about our global presence and then take it back down to US, and then finally how we are in Massachusetts. Our primary core business is shareholder services. We also process employee equity plans, employee stock option plans, employee stock purchase plans, corporate life cycle events, companies that are going IPO, the M&A that might occur, the stock splits, stock dividend, reverse splits, as well as bankruptcy. Executive services focus mostly on providing services to executives in terms of the structured selling of shares in their organization. Through one of our sister companies, Georgeson Securities, some of the attorneys in the room might have heard of Georgeson, proxy solicitation advisory services. We also offer corporate governance and financial printing and communication services. As a company, we're approximately 3.6 billion US. We are traded on the Australian Stock Exchange. About $1.5 billion in revenue last year. 4% of that, actually a little closer to 5%, goes right into R&D. 14,000 clients worldwide, 100 million shareholders. So you can get some understanding of what the scope of, you talk about the plumbing and the infrastructure in the world, Computershare is a big part of that. We're probably edging closer to 11,000 employees worldwide. Just to give you an idea of where our offices are, you can see we have some pretty good coverage. Again, we're based in Melbourne, Australia. From the US perspective, I actually was with Harris Bank when Computershare entered into the company, and that was their first acquisition in North America was through the Harris Bank, Bank of Montreal book of business. I put on here a little circle for the EquiServe business, what takes us as a company into the Boston area. And I think when you think about EquiServe, that was actually the combination of the stock transfer businesses of BFDS, Bank Boston, First Chicago Trust, and State Street. So as you can see over time, a lot of the financial institutions, banking institutions have gotten out of this business, and that's what's created the opportunity for us today. In the U.S., 2,700 public companies that we process their transfers for, 17 million active shareholder accounts. As you can see, we have a good share of the S&P, the Fortune 500, and the Dow. 2,300 staff of the 11,000 that we have are in the U.S. Our primary offices are in Canton, New York, Jersey, Chicago, and Denver. So what do we have in Massachusetts? About 900 individual people. We actually staff up to about 1,200, and that's during our busy season, which is right now, which is the tax and the proxy season as we're coming into. That's where we house our state-of-the-art data center. We have one of 3 call centers, our largest here in Canton. Mail receipt and imaging. All of our transactions are images that come in the door. Transaction processing, relationship management team. We have relationship management teams across the country as well. And then we have specialized business units, tax, unclaimed property. So what do we do? Taking it down to a level where hopefully this helps everyone in the room. We maintain shareholder records, so companies that trade on any of the exchanges will come to us and ask us to maintain their shareholder records. We also disperse dividends and administer dividend reinvestment and direct stock purchase plans. Many people in the room don't realize that you can actually hold stock directly with a corporation through the transfer agent than with a broker. So that's something that we hope to capitalize on. Shareholder services, a call center, web support. We process all the purchases, sales, and transfers. We also update account information where people live, estate planning, whatnot. Coordinate proxy and annual meeting services. Execute corporate actions. I was talking about life cycle transactions before, such as splits and dividends and exchanges. And then, of course, the tax-related unclaimed property. So that just takes me through what do we do so that I can talk a little bit about what's our current environment, what are our challenges. Well, right now, as everyone in the room could probably appreciate from their own business, everyone's focused on expense control. We have every company that we work with is experiencing some level of pressure in terms of controlling expenses and cutting back. Some are willing to cut the services that we provide to them, some that are processing, or some that are renewing with us or actually are in contract negotiations. Everybody's looking for price cuts or ways to reduce their costs. At the same time, as we have products and services, fewer companies are looking to buy those products and services, so that's one of our challenges. Market volatility, the Dow's gone from 14,000 in the latter part of last year to roughly around 8,000 today. Hopefully it's only 8,000 today and not any lower, but that's caused transactional volume and market values to fall off, which of course has an impact on how we generate fees as an organization. Drop in corporate merger and acquisition activity, of course, stock prices are down. You have companies that are hoarding their cash right now. There are some companies that are actually looking to use that cash. A good example is the Pfizer deal that was just announced. And in our business, it really matters what side of the transaction you're on. If you're acquiring, if you actually provide services for the acquiring company or for the acquired company. Because as you can see, when Wyeth comes off the market, that's one less opportunity for us to provide a service to a corporation. Cash management, balances, and interest rates. We, like every other financial institution that you'll hear about, do depend on core balances to some extent. Our balances are relatively stable but are under pressure, but as everyone knows, our interest rates are at historic lows, which creates a great deal of challenges for us. From a regulatory perspective, industry's under many changes right now from the SEC and including TARP, proxy reform, processing standards. We have a turnover of management at the SEC, so that's going to create some challenges. Companies that receive TARP funds, some of those companies are our companies that we provide services for. They've gone and taken their dividends down to a penny. That, of course, changes the profitability on those relationships, so we have challenges there. Stricter requirements because of privacy, achievement, and tax reporting. Those of you in Massachusetts probably familiar with the TJX experience. In terms of a privacy breach, that's caused the SEC to come out with some new regulations with respect to red flag rules, and then even Massachusetts coming in with some new privacy laws that we need to be able to respond to. Escheatment, not many people know what escheatment is, but that is where the state takes property that's unclaimed for some period of time. And California and Texas being states that are very aggressive in that respect. That's going to increase as states come under more budget pressure, which means they're going to be more aggressive in trying to determine who are unfound or unlocated people, and that's going to affect us as well. And then, of course, the Economic Stability Act that created TARP. One of the little-known passages that went through that act was the mandatory requirement for 1099-Bs, which is normally just the proceeds from a sale, to by I think 2011, to include the purchase price that someone paid for a stock. So what you'll see in a couple of years is not only will you get a form that tells you how much you sold for, but it will also be required to tell you how much you purchased it for. They estimate that over a 10-year period there's about $6 billion to be made by people misreporting. I'm not saying they're dishonest, I'm just saying misreporting their capital gains on transactions. Though I'd be challenged to see if anybody's got a capital gain this year, unless you've held it for a long time. Market and competition, we're in a mature industry. There's a finite number of companies. As those companies merge, that's one less opportunity for us. So the only way to win core business is for us to acquire it from competitors or to acquire the competitor themselves. As with every other company, you're going to find tighter margins. Our competitors are certainly tightening their belt and getting more aggressive in the pricing in the marketplace. Commodity versus specialized. You know, we provide services to most of the Fortune, I should say a large portion of the Fortune 500 and S&P 500. So there's a lot of specialized service there, but if companies are getting more sensitive to pricing, they're not so much looking for product and service, which when you talk about the triangle of how you sell, we have always focused on the product and service aspect. We're going to come under more pressure from pricing as companies say that we just can't afford the specialized service, turn it back into something more of a commodity. And then entrance into the new market creates new challenges for us. And then we have some competitors that are trying to mimic our product globally. And I won't mention their names because why give them any credit? So what are we doing during all of these challenges? Responding to client needs. One of the things I did with my team of people earlier, I should say later, part of last year, is realize that as the market moved down and as companies were going to come under pressure, we needed to get aggressive before they came back to us and asked for price decreases. We sat down and thought of 25 different ways that companies can reduce the fees they pay us or change the services that they use that can actually reduce their costs. So we were trying to be more proactive in terms of how we help companies get through this difficult time. A good example of that is some regulatory changes with notice and access, which is when you vote a proxy. Historically, I think people remember getting big packets of proxy material, which tended to get thrown out and hardly ever opened. Well, a lot of people realized that, so what they did is required companies to post that information on the web and then send out a card. Well, if companies take advantage of that, they can reduce their printing and mailing costs significantly by using that automated service. We're focused on product development. When I talked about trying to sell companies more products and services, you know, there's a challenge there. What things would be valued by companies as well as shareholders? One of the things we developed fortuitously last year was the ability to trade securities real time in our organization. Typically, a transfer agent, if they were given a request to sell a security, would trade it in a batch mode and give it an average price at the end of the day. But with the stock volatility, we started working on a market order trading product, which has been very successful for us, as well as a product for international currency. We have a lot of people that hold securities that live overseas. So instead of sending them a check in US dollars, which they then have to spend an awful lot of money to go and cash at a local bank overseas, we actually can cut a security or cut a check in 80 different currencies. So that helps people reduce some of their costs there. Increase efficiency, we're looking, of course, inside to take a look at our operations. I think a lot of organizations are doing that. There was an article in the Wall Street last week that talked about banks that have consolidated. You know, you look at PNC, Nat City, Bank of America, with Merrill to take a look at their platforms and try to consolidate those and cut some of the cost out there while they have some pressure. There's diversification, shifting resources to business lines that are more profitable in other geographic areas. As a global company, we have an opportunity to look across the world and say there are markets that are improving more than others, and are able to shift our resources to where there's more opportunity. So that's something that's very important. From a regulatory standpoint, we take an active role in the industry's change. Charlie Rossi, sitting here with us today, is Executive Vice President with Computershare, and he spends a great deal of time down in Washington talking to House and Senate committees. He's also working with the IRS and the Treasury Department now, trying to implement those changes that I spoke of on the 1099-B in terms of keeping the cost basis. We do work with the SEC and his group, the STA. He's the president of the Stock Transfer Association. He works with the SEC in terms of trying to update some of the regulatory requirements to make processing a little easier for people. Market and competition. We're trying to create differentiation in the marketplace. We're changing our message. We're expanding our product suite where possible, and we're trying to deliver the highest quality of service right now. We're focusing on our strengths. We try to know who we are, and we're trying to stick to our core businesses. We have some ancillary businesses that we've exited recently due to this current environment. We also have the needs of customers where they're looking for stability. As Con mentions, we're the largest globally and one of the largest in the U.S. I think the second largest transfer agent in the U.S. So we're looking at other banks where they've gotten in and out of this business, and we're looking at our clients and saying, well, we've been in this business a long time, so we hope to stay in it. And then from a strategic partnership and acquisition standpoint, we continue to look at other companies and other opportunities to leverage our platform. So just to kind of sum up from a client standpoint or a corporate standpoint, what are our keys to success? And I think important to communicate to everyone. Communicate with your customers, communicate with your employees, communicate with the shareholders that we do business with. We need to understand their needs because their needs are changing right now. Over the course of the last 6 months, we have a lot of change in the industry. We're certainly trying to keep up with our clients and understand what they're looking for us to do, which is in some cases quite different than it was 6 months ago. We're focused on our employees, keeping our talented employees. We have to let them know what the challenges are. We've developed a scorecard so that we can get out and talk about key metrics with our employees on a quarterly basis. I get in front of every employee in the organization at least twice a year in a town hall environment to talk about what's going on, where do we see ourselves, how does this affect you. Very open dialogue. I'm not going to say we haven't let go of a few people, but you see in the paper that you have companies that are just kind of slashing away and coming out with bold announcements. That's not something we've had to do because we focused on constantly meeting our employee metric in terms of how many people we employ based on the amount of work we have. And while the market value of a lot of these securities have gone down significantly, we still need to transfer those securities, so there's still work to be involved. And of course, with suppliers and vendors, you have to stay on top of them the same way we're a vendor to a lot of companies. We have a lot of companies that provide services for us, so I would encourage everyone to continue talking with their vendors. We got to focus on our customers' impacts when making decisions because they're going to have a long memory. What we do now will be remembered for quite some time. And I think you have a lot of companies out there that might be a little knee-jerk in terms of what they're doing to try to meet some of these challenges today, and we try to avoid that quite a bit by thinking about what will impacts of cost cutting or changes in our operation do to our clients and making sure that we don't create any kind of damage to our long-term strategy. And again, remember your long-term strategy when you react to the short-term challenges. I think Jamie Dimon was quoted by saying that he basically threw out his own strategy plan. But I will guarantee you a guy like Jamie Dimon is thinking about what does 10 and 11 and 12 look like. So as we go through this and see what's going on, we're constantly looking at what's the opportunity down the road. We may build products and services that might not have a lot of uptake right now, but certainly we see a demand for those types of products in the longer term. And then, of course, with crisis comes opportunity. We're looking to certain operations to be more efficient in what we do. We're looking at acquiring, as always, as a company to see what the opportunities are in the marketplace, not necessarily in the core business, but in businesses that might be supplemental or complementary to some of the structures we have in place already. We're probably taking more risks than we normally would because an environment like this forces you to take more risks. You just have to think out of the box more. We spend a lot of time internally trying to think about what didn't we do or what haven't we done or what do we think was crazy before might not be so crazy in this current environment. And of course, we hope to be in a position tomorrow to take advantage of these benefits as we move through some uncharted waters. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and have a good day. Thank you.